Good day, everyone, and welcome to Journey of the Anointed with Mr. Buzz. I'm going to get a little preachy here again, sorry, but the Lord has asked me to speak about a couple of things, and when the Lord says do this, I do that. Whatever He says. So He wants me to talk about weed, good old cannabis. So many of you just love and adore, and I did too for my whole life. Started smoking cannabis at age 14. Pretty interesting how I came into it. My father one day, he was into making his own beer. I was 14 years old, and I'd gotten home from school, and my father thought it was proper to give me an adult education when I was really young. I don't totally disagree with everything he did. A lot of it was really good. Excuse me. This one particular thing probably I could have done without would have changed the course of my life quite a bit. So we had a speedboat. It was on the trailer. At this time, it was in our backyard. Sometimes we moored it. We lived right by the ocean, so we had a mooring out there, and we just left it in the water sometimes too. This particular day, it was on the trailer and in our backyard. It needed to be cleaned. It had, the bottom of it gets all that green stuff all over it. Needed to be cleaned, so he said, I'll tell you what, you get out there and clean that boat, which was quite a job. He said, you do that, and I got a big surprise for you when you're done. Something you'll really like. I said, okay. Didn't know what it was he was going to give me, but surprise, good surprise. Yeah, my father was pretty generous with stuff like that. If he said it was going to be a big surprise, it was going to be something good, so I was sold. So I went out and I scrubbed that boat, and he was pretty satisfied. I did a good job. He said, all right. So he threw a couple of joints, hash joints, down on the table. He said, those are yours. You can smoke them. You'll like that, I think. I was like, oh, this is like, back then we called it just a dope. It was dope. I said, that's dope. He's like, yeah, it's hash. It's not just dope, it's good dope. Real good. Lebanese blonde. I was like, okay. Didn't know anything about the strains or the difference between hash and weed at that point. I knew there was those two things, but I didn't know anything about it really. I'd already been drinking at that point. He'd allowed me some homemade beer. So he even instructed me to go down to the basement and grab a 2-4 of the homebrew, he said, and bring it up. So I did. Smoked the first joint. Not a thing happened. Not a thing. I was already smoking cigarettes too, which I was allowed to do. So I smoked the second one. Still nothing happened. So it's a very true thing that sometimes the first time you smoke cannabis, nothing happens. It takes a couple times before it will actually do anything. That was the case with me. Those 2 joints didn't do anything. So I was quite disappointed, and I kept telling him how disappointed I was. I wanted to know what it was like, and that didn't work. He's like, that's all right. There'll be another time. I'll give you more. You'll try again. So he gave me some more another day. And it still didn't work. And I was smoking it right. It was really weird that it wasn't working, but my body was not grooving to it whatsoever. Finally, the third time, I remember my uncle Lauren was down, him and his wife, and they liked to party with my parents. And it was about 10 o'clock at night, 10:30, and they all wanted to get into the dope, and my mother wasn't having that in front of me. There's no way. So I was still up, and I was in the way. So my father pulled me aside. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a whole gram of hash for yourself if you'll go to bed right now and make yourself scarce so we can have fun. It's like, sure, sounds good. So I went to bed early and left them to party. He kept his promise. The next day, I woke up. As I walked out into the kitchen, he reached out his hand like this, and I just held my hand out, and he dropped a gram of hash in my hand. I looked at it. It was red hash this time. He said, I promise you, that's going to work. I said, how do you know that? He said, oh, it's real good. And it was. It was, whoa. I will never forget that stuff. So later on that day, I went out, and I knew he'd showed me how to roll it and everything, so I knew I was already pretty well versed in how to roll a joint, and hadn't even been high yet, but I knew all that. So I went down to this little place just a few yards down the road that we called the drive-in, because you could drive a car in there and hide, and people took girls in there to do things and whatever. It was just we called it the drive-in. And I went in there and rolled up my joint, and I smoked it. Boom! I mean, I even heard a crack when it hit me. And I just remember looking up at the sky, and everything was just going. And it was making a noise every time the world pulsed. It went. It was so weird. And I was just out of it. I was so high, I couldn't move. So I stood there for who knows how long. I don't know how long. Finally, I needed to get something to drink. I got so dry. There was a gas station beside my house, so I had to walk by my house and get to the gas station. And I didn't want to see my parents. My father, no big deal, I guess. He knew what I was up to. I did not want to see my mother. I knew that. So, unfortunately, she happened to be looking out the window as I'm walking by. And I thought my feet were about 3.5 or 4 feet long. So I was walking like I had flippers on. Okay, I'm like lifting my legs way up, and I'm walking. And she sees me out the window, and she comes out, and she goes, what is the matter with you? I'm like, nothing. I'm fine. I'm still walking like I got flippers on. She knew something was up for sure, but she just let me go for the time being. She confronted me later. So I went into the gas station and I bought some pop, and I couldn't even ask for the pop right because my mouth was stuck together. It was so bad. And I was just so high and freaked out by what was happening. I was in a state. It was terrible. Luckily, at the gas station, it wasn't the owner of the gas station. It was the son was running the station for the night. And he was like 2 years older than me. So he was like 16. And he looked right at me and goes, you are as high as a kite. I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, you got any more? That's all I want to know. I was like, yeah, I got all kinds of this. He's like, gotta give me some of that. Whatever got you that high, I definitely want some. Because he was experienced with it already. I said, I'll do even better. You can have it all. I never want this again. just handed it over. Gave it to him. He liked that. It was Lebanese red hash. It was unbelievably potent. So it took me about 6 hours to come down off it. You'd think that would stop me from ever doing it again. It was a horrible experience. It was absolutely horrible. But no, what does Jeff do? I asked my father for more. I wanted to try it again. He gave me some more. And the second time, I didn't smoke so much of it that it blasted me in the next week. And I ended up loving it. And then the next time, I got some more and ended up loving it. So my father turned me into a pothead. Soon after that, he introduced me to weed. It was all hash first. Then it was weed. Then I found my own drug dealer. My own dealer, I could go and buy a gram from him whenever I wanted. He'd meet me down the road at a certain spot. And it just went from there. It is a gateway drug too, because it led me to LSD shortly after that. And then I just kept on going. I tried other things, cocaine and you name it. I mean, it is a gateway drug. No one can tell me it's not. It was for me, so I'm sure it is for others. And that molded my life in a certain way. Instead of, well, first of all, financially, that decided my finances forever. All my money went to drugs. That's where my money went. It also decided the crowd I hung out with. I hung out with other potheads. And were they doing good things? Well, some of us were musicians. Like most of us were musicians, actually. That's about the only good thing we did. Other than that, it was drugs. We wanted drugs. That's what we liked. So I wasn't hanging out with productive people who were, working on their careers or... No, it was about getting high. It was about getting high. The girls I dated. What kind of girls did I date? Well, the ones that like to get high. So it really molded me in a certain way, certain direction. It steered me. So let's keep fast forwarding until my second marriage. So we go back about 15 years for this. And I get into Hinduism. Still a major pothead at this time. My whole life. I smoked it every day of my life for my whole entire life. I get into Hinduism and I discover that in Hinduism, this is a sacrament. It's actually a sacrament. They use it in a religious context. Wow. This is my kind of religion. I can be worshiping and getting high at the same time. You're kidding me. This is genius. This is perfect. So I really love that. Here's my idols of Shiva and Ganesh. Well, actually not Ganesh. I learned the hard way. Ganesh didn't like it. Ganesh hated it. Shiva, on the other hand, loved it. So when I was doing ceremonies to Shiva, couldn't smoke enough to satisfy Shiva. He was all for it. Little did I know that what I was doing was opening a portal after portal after portal to demons. I certainly was. Cannabis is one of the worst substances known for attracting demons. And it's through Shiva, the destroyer, that this takes place. This is one of the reasons that Shiva loves cannabis so much. And so many people are unaware of this. It's why they legalized it here in Canada. It's not just about money and stuff. There's a spiritual aspect to this. They legalized cannabis because it is a portal opener. It is a demonic portal opener. And that is exactly what the elites are doing right now. The Pope himself just opened up 5 holy doors, he calls them. Demonic portals. One of them he opened up in a prison. I forget what the other 4 were, but some real creepy stuff. It's not a real Pope that we got there. He's working for the other team. He absolutely is. He's not... Never should have been a Jesuit Pope in the first place. That was a big mistake. Huge mistake, letting a Jesuit be the Pope. Everyone should have known that. I mean, everyone really should have known that. But, yeah, that's what they're doing, is opening up all these portals. They're opening up the gates of hell. That's what CERN is all about. What do they use at CERN? Think about what they have at CERN. They even do the dance of Shiva at CERN. All around that place where CERN is, you'll find idols of Shiva dancing, doing his destroyer dance. The dance of death and destruction. And cannabis is a huge, huge part of that. And all this just suddenly came to me one day, fairly recently, the last few months. I had ounces and ounces of weed here. I had big bags of it. I grew it myself. I grew last 2 years in a row. And plus I have a lot of people just come and give me bags of weed. I had so much weed here at one point, I had to start giving it away. It was going to go bad before I could smoke it all. So I got rid of it all. I got rid of my pipes, rid of all my papers and all my paraphernalia, everything. And I realized right away, as soon as I stopped, wow, this stuff had a hold on me I didn't even understand. It's the most deceptive of all the plants. It makes you think it's benign. It's not. It's not at all. It's quite the opposite of benign. Now that I understand it, I have such deep regrets for the way I've used it for a long time. So you'll never see me use it again. I'm done with it. I don't even miss that one at all. I feel very, very good about putting that down, actually. And I doubt I'm going to convince very many people out there who use it that what I'm saying is true. You need to actually move through the levels of spirituality to come to these conclusions. You can't be at the beginning of your spiritual journey and realize something that's meant for you to realize later on in your spiritual journey. You have to get there. Okay? And when it comes to cannabis, it's a deceptive one. They call it the devil's lettuce. That's an interesting nickname for it. It's the drug of choice of Shiva the Destroyer. The Hindu priests actually consume it in something called bhang, B-H-A-N-G. It's concentrated cannabis in a liquid form. And they drink it, and boom. It's pretty much a psychedelic when you take it that way. Edibles are different than smoking it. It has a psychedelic property to it then. And you're opening yourself up to, the very least, demonic influence. But you're really opening yourself up to those demons to attach themselves to you. A lot of people call them spiritual parasites. Well, cannabis will bring on spiritual parasites like you just can't believe. It's one of the worst things possible for that. Excuse me. So if you care about your spiritual well-being, you got to put the cannabis down. That's for sure. That's for sure. Not here to be, preachy and shake my finger. I smoked weed for 40 years. Literally 40 years I smoked it. Every day. Every single day. I get the appeal of it. Now, then we got another aspect, and then I'll end this video because it's almost 20 minutes now. If cannabis is used as medicine, administered by a proper physician, I don't mean these websites out there, oh, you got this wrong with you, you need a prescription, and they're just giving weed to everybody. That's not what I mean. The cannabis plant has certain properties that make it very useful in treating epileptic seizures and things like this. In that context, that doesn't bring demonic possession or open portals. Things aren't just mechanics in the spirit realm. There's intention and will behind everything. So if a person is using cannabis in the proper way, prescribed by a proper physician, for something that it's actually effective in treating, the results are going to be different. So I'm not taking away from its medical use. Cannabis is a very useful plant medically, extremely. Saves tons of kids from epileptic seizures and things like that. That needs to continue. It's good. That's a good thing. Those kids are not opening portals. Those kids are not having demons attached to them because of it. No, no. If anything, it's chasing the demons away. The demons might be the reason they're having the epileptic seizures. That's fixing them. That's a different thing. You also have to include the will and intention. The whole action has to be considered to see what the results are going to be. So using cannabis does not automatically do this. Using cannabis to get high recreationally does this. And using it as a sacrament in Hinduism definitely does this. Okay? That's where it's the worst. But I'm not taking away from its medical benefits. It has lots. So I want to be clear on that. And as that's 20 minutes, we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you did enjoy that video. Lots more to come. I think my sort of had video block there. I couldn't, for a couple of days, I couldn't even hardly make a video, and I don't even know what was going on. But feeling a little better now, and try to get my flow going again. So thanks for watching, and don't forget that Jesus Christ is the King of all kings.